Hello, my name's Cliff Stevenson and I'm the Helpful Economist. Today we're looking at the question of whether the UK government has exaggerated the increase in police numbers. In 2019, the government announced its intention to increase the number of police by 20,000 by March 2023, and the Home Office recently announced that this 20,000 increase had been achieved and that there were now a record number of police officers in the UK. These are the normal Home Office statistics on the number of police officers, and they do show that there was a dramatic increase during this period. But these aren't the figures actually used to measure whether the 20,000 increase has been achieved. Special statistics were created, the so-called uplift figures. And there were legitimate reasons for this, not least that the figures were supposed to only represent the additional police officers, not increases in the numbers already announced in the normal statistics. So the green dotted line shows that the number of police officers increased from 128,000 in September 2019 to 149,000 in March 2023, clearly achieving the 20,000 increase. So the government can rightly claim that it's achieved what it promised to do back in 2019. However, looking at the data back to 2006, we can see that this doesn't tell the whole picture. The grey shading shows the period covered by the previous diagram, but we can see that going back beyond that, there was actually a dramatic decrease in the number of police officers. So the Conservatives actually came to power in 2010, which is shown by the orange shading on this graph. And using a figure calculated on an equivalent basis to the uplift figures, we can see that the number of police actually increased from 146,000 in 2010 to 149,000 in March 2023. In fact, although the government was correct in saying that there'd been an increase in the number of police by 21,000 since September 2019, looking back to 2010, we see that there had been a 17.5 thousand fall in the number of police, and that therefore during the time that this government has actually been in power, the number of police has actually increased by only 3,500. Now, this is an increase, and the government has restored the number of police after that big drop, and it's certainly true that there is now a record number of police. But it's a little bit misleading for the government just to claim that it's increased the number of police by more than 20,000 without seeing it in this broader context. So it's interesting to ask the question whether these big changes in police numbers have had any impact on crime. Now, it's not straightforward comparing the crime statistics over time, so this analysis isn't definitive, but we can see clear trends. The most accurate data on the number of crimes committed is considered to be the Crime Survey of England and Wales, and this is based on an extensive survey of whether people have experienced crime within the previous 12 months. It includes all crimes in England and Wales except for fraud and computer misuse. We can see that crime peaked in the mid-90s and then has decreased consistently and dramatically since. Another measure of crime is police recorded crime, and for the period that this government has been in power, it actually shows an increase in the numbers of crimes. However, there seems to be a general agreement that this is because of better recording of crimes, and that all suggestions are that the number of crimes has fallen significantly despite that fall in police numbers. So at face value, it might seem a little bit odd that crime fell when the number of police dramatically fell. But actually, there does seem to be something of a global trend of crime decreasing in the past couple of decades. And there's not very much firm data on this, but there has been some analysis which suggests that this global trend in reduced crime is to do with more and better security, and that there isn't any evidence that this reduction is to do with changes in policing or sanctions. One question that can be asked is whether the government will be able to maintain these high levels of police numbers. Looking at the number of people leaving the police, we can see that since 2015, for several years, around 25% of of leavers were resigning voluntarily. In the 3 years following that, we can see that there's quite a dramatic increase in the proportion of voluntary resignation. And in 2021-22, it reached 42.3%. So if this trend does continue, it might be a bit difficult to keep the numbers of police that high. So in conclusion, it has to be acknowledged that the government has done well in achieving this increase in police numbers. And it's absolutely true that we now have a record number of police officers in the UK. However, it's a bit misleading of the government to present this out of context of the previous cuts. I hope you found this information useful. My name's Cliff Stevenson. I'm the Helpful Economist. See you next time.